everybody, it's Drybear. There have been a lot of questions and requests revolving Dune Awakening over the last week or so. People have been diving into the game and having fun, exploring the different tiers of progression, making their way to endgame and playing around with it. There's also just a lot that needs to be fixed, updated, or addressed for Dune Awakening, and there's more content that needs to be added as well. And so while there have been some dev responses over the last week or so, you know, small comments here and there, predictions about new vehicles coming in. They even mentioned they want to bring tanks and ground vehicles into the game as well. There was an official AMA that they just completed that goes over their thoughts that people got to ask a whole bunch of questions and get official answers to. So today in this video, I want to go over all of the official answers that we got in the AMA so that we're all caught up on what's going on and what to expect. And in case you're wondering, this was completed by their creative director, their EP, their senior game director, and lead producer. So these are the people that handle the content that goes into the game, why it goes into the game, when it goes into the game, and how it makes its way to you on your PC at home as well. So these are definitely the people that you want answering these questions in the first place. The first question is, what are the quality of life plans? Because a lot of people have issues with jankiness, bugs, awkward inventories, not even be able to deposit all of the water you have on you at one go. You have to spam the button over and over, organization issues, placement in bases, and things in the deep desert. So quality of life was a big question. And also, what are the PvE plans for the future as well, as a lot of people don't like the chaos that is the deep desert. And the response was, we have an updated testing that contains a lot of quality of life. They've mentioned depositing water and some things like that, aiming to release in early July. So like 2 weeks from now is what they're looking at for that update as well. And as they get closer, they'll give more details on that one. And for PvE, the future, each of our major updates will also continue new story content, so getting that campaign further progressed, new PvE content, which will release at the same time as our DLCs come out, as they do have a season pass that has one update on it that just contains a couple statues in general, but they do have those DLCs coming out, and their goal is to release every 3 to 4 months, so quarterly. So they plan to do quarterly updates. It seems like our first one's going to be in July, and then maybe towards the start of fall, we'll get another big one. And it does seem like they want to increase the amount of campaign stories which hopefully people have actually finished the campaign and haven't spent all of their time just building in the game and running around collecting different resources, because there is a full campaign, some cool cutscenes, some very unique environment settings as well, crash ships, mutants and zombies, real dark stuff and things like that. So if you haven't done the main campaign, you should complete it. It is super fun. Next, do you plan on adding daily and weekly contracts for PvE solo players? A lot of the daily and weekly activity, once you get into tier 6 or you've completed tier 5 progression and you've done the campaign, if you're a PvE player, the only option you really have is Landsraad, which is PvP and deep desert related, or deep desert, which is PvP related. And so there's not really any ongoing activities for people that want to enjoy the PvE aspects of the game for completing things and, logging in every day. And so the question is there going to be more content for PvE enjoyers? And the response was, currently we have the Landsraad to offer weekly content for players to engage with. Again, the Landsraad is very PvP centric. You can, however, if you really want to, you can just do the turn-ins for Landsraad. So there's an option to do non-PvP if you want to. There will be an option on the Landsraad once the task gets revealed. It says, hey, we want med kits, or you can go and get the gems from the deep desert from solo and turn those in for a rep as well if you really want to. So they do have that as an option. We have read the feedback about some tasks getting locked early as people finish them too quickly, because again, once your server finishes that Landsraad task, it's locked, you can't progress it. Tasks being too hard for solo players, and feedback on the general rewards. We will make improvements on this in the future. In addition, we will be releasing more PvE content with major updates, and we will have more dynamic encounters in the game that will offer a variety and new content for you to discover as you explore Arrakis. Further extending that, I got asked again, once you do all the contracts in Hagga, there aren't any more quests to do. Like, once you do all the contract chains, you're done. Like, they don't keep popping up. There's not new ones. They don't need new cut arrays delivered, or new sand bike delivered, or new weapon delivered. It's really just you finish those contract trains and that's it. So there are plans to add additional repeatable new contracts every single week, or resets that we can use. And the answer is yes, there are plans to add new contracts across the board. In addition, the Landsraad itself is supposed to involve more contracts in order to reveal tasks for the houses, as well as contracts that lead into the deep desert. I would disagree with Joel here a little bit, is that the Landsraad itself is supposed to involve more contracts. The contracts, especially if you're on a very populated server, the tasks will pop up, and then, honestly, within half a day, day, they're gone, they're filled up, completed, and once they're done, you can't really do any, like it's locked. You have to either wait for new activities to spawn in for the Landsraad, or just go do something else, because those tend, depending on the popularity of your server, those could be up for a couple days, or they could be done within a matter of hours, depending on how aggressive and competitive the other players are. Next, we get into some controversial topics. This one was brought up a few times in the AMA, but we're going to dive into it now because it is actually quite important that we kind of keep track of this in general, because this is going to be a big point of contention for people when it comes to the Dune Awakening experience. So, are you at least entertaining the idea change to make Scout Ornithopters weaponless? Which means that right now the Scout Ornithopter is the best Ornithopter in the game because it is only moderately, it's only moderately worse than the Assault or the Carrier in various, very important ways. However, it still loads a decent amount of storage. It still has rockets. And so most people, unless they're running with a large group or guild, will run the Scout because it's faster. It can get in and get out. It has more top speed, and it still provides, weapons platforms and storage depending on what you're trying to use it for. So what are your goals regarding changes to PvP in Deep Desert? And what about Scout Ornithopters becoming weaponless in general for that standpoint? So the response from Viljar here is, as for PvP in the Deep Desert, we're currently formulating a plan considering: 1, we want players to make more meaningful decisions about what they bring with them and how they outfit their vehicles. 2, once players have engaged in PvP, we want experience to be reliable, responsive, and clearly understood. This determines how PvP as a whole feels and how players make their moment-to-moment decisions in a fight. And 3, to ensure a more reliable experience in ground combat, we are continuing to address issues with movement desyncs and rubber banding, as well as ability activation reliability. And this is kind of a big thing for them in general, as this will cause a lot of confusion between players. I think in general, there's definitely, they did patch out the Goomba stomping. So, the first, half week or so for Dune Awakening, people were just stomping Ornithopters onto people and two-shotting them, essentially. You would hit them, knock them onto one shot, hit them again, and they'd be dead. And if they weren't in a vehicle, they were basically screwed. You can even block them from getting into their Ornithopter, which created a lot of issues in general for that as well. And they did patch that out, so you can't Goomba stomp people from that as well. There's still issues where you can drive a buggy up to someone's base and then take the treads off the buggy, which makes that buggy then immovable by anyone unless you're the person that owns the buggy. So you can block base entrances with buggies. There's tons of griefing. People are taking the base outfit loader, the replica, to be able to put a base around someone else's base to block them into their own base because you can't damage the walls anymore. They fixed the bug where cut arrays could damage enemy base walls, and so there's just a ton of griefing and other things going on, and questions around the Ornithopters and how they work. But this is kind of just a high level perspective on them. They said they want to make people to have meaningful decisions. They want the experience to be reliable. I feel like a lot of these, we want everything to be great and perfect, those kind of responses to me don't carry as much weight because they don't really have any meat to them. It's of course you want everything to be reliable. Of course you want the decisions to be meaningful. Of course you want the game to be fun. It's kind of like a non-answer, but we'll have to wait and see when they actually give us some real answers on what they want to do long-term, and also what this first new DLC will be for the game once it finally releases. This next one is a big one. Especially once you get a lot of storage containers in your base. I have tons of the maximum spice melange storages in my base, and I just kind of remember where they are, but it would be great if we could label them. So the question here is, will you be looking at a change so we can name storage containers? Even just some survival games make it so you can put an icon on them, so you can at least organize them that way. At least something to help organize that, especially when you put everything in the right place and then you share a base with other people or guild members. They come in and they put items in all the wrong places and mess up the organization. It'd be nice if you could label or even restrict what items go into what containers. And the response is definitely that is on the list of changes we want to make to improve base resource management. I can't commit to exactly when this is coming, but we understand the difficulty in managing huge bases with tons of storage containers, so it's on the list. It sounds like it's not going to make it into the July patch, although maybe depending on the implementation. This is their executive producer responding on this, and sometimes the EPs have a high level view, but the change list may be may escape them on what exactly is in, what's being checked in and what's not. So maybe it makes it into the July update, maybe it doesn't, but at least is on the way for people that like to keep their base organized. Next is a question, containers and vehicles. It's annoying when you have 12 in the base and want to put material in one directly, because again, it is awesome that they launched with the feature that you can, when you're in your base, you can pull from the inventory of any of your vehicles. And oftentimes I will use my buggy as like a transitional storage. When I'm moving boxes around, I'll load everything into the buggy, create a new storage container, take everything out of the buggy and put it back into it. So it's nice that you can do that. However, there's one major problem with it, is that when you go into the game and you look at all your vehicles, they're just named by the vehicle type that it is, which means that if you have 4 scout ornithopters and 3 buggies, it'll just say buggy, 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 scout ornithopter, scout ornithopter, scout ornithopter, and you can't tell which one is which without just kind of loading them with something. So the question is, hey, can we get names for vehicles, or at least some way to denote which one is which and what they look like, so at least we know what we're pulling from? And the response was, vehicle naming is something that will be coming to help out with the management of inventory bases. This will appear on the inventory dropdown in the base, so you know which vehicle you are taking resources from. So it's part of that whole inventory quality of life pass, that UI UX pass that they're making on storage in general. So it is going to be part of that that effort that they're taking. Next on the same topic is, will you change Landsraad so that players can continue to contribute to it after it has been claimed? This is something that we talked about a couple minutes ago, the general idea that, once the Landsraad task has been revealed, everyone starts contributing to it, which depending on the population of your server, that task may be up for a couple days where you can contribute to it, or it may be gone within a matter of hours, because a lot of these large guilds are stockpiling resources. They'll go out, they'll capture the capture point as soon as the task pops up, then they'll take their massive store of resources and dump them all into the task, and then that Landsraad task is gone in a matter of hours and you can't contribute to it anymore. So will you make it so players can continue to contribute it after it has been claimed, so at least they can be a part of the Landsraad if they're on a very highly competitive server? And the response is, our current plan is to allow your contributions to stack week after week, so that small groups and solos can work towards larger rewards over time, and then adding more tiers of rewards as well as new activity drivers in the Landsraad. So this is actually a very elegant solution, I think, to the problem. So if you're a solo player or a small group, especially on a competitive server, what Joel is saying here is that the idea is that you would be able to contribute small amounts every week, but that would stack up. So if you contributed small amount last week, you can add to it the next week and the next week. So eventually you could get all the rewards that these big organizations are getting, even though you're solo, because you can kind of keep up with it that way, which is, I think, a really good way to do it. And also adding more tiers of rewards as well, so that you can drive more activity, so that some of those tasks on the competitive servers don't disappear in a matter of hours. Next is a very interesting one, and there's a lot of back and forth on this. There are people that want Dune to be a PvE exclusive game. There are people that want Dune to stay the way it is, and there are people that want Dune Awakening to be even more PvP focused than it already is as well. And a lot of those different groups of people are at war right now, trying to ask the devs for changes and updates and things to make it fit whatever vision they have for the game in general. And it's kind of curious to see, what's going to win out in the end. So the question here is, are there any plans to implement something like faction-based warfare in the deep desert with a war map and such? So what they're looking for here is kind of like a World of Warcraft alliance versus horde idea, where anyone who's Harkonnen can't gank other people who are Harkonnen in the deep desert, and vice versa with Atreides, so that it's more of like Atreides versus Harkonnen, so that you can, you're not really forced into that. So it's not like, you go into the deep desert and you're gonna get yanked on by anyone that's walking by. PvP and DD is a big issue at the moment, as it's almost entirely aircraft-based free-for-all. I do not mind having aircraft being able to fight, but we'd like to see something to encourage more ground combat to make use of all the skills and gear we have for such things. The response is, the deep desert will always stay a PvP free-for-all area, but we might consider adding other locations that offer factional warfare. So they're saying unequivocally they don't intend to do Harkonnen versus Atreides in the deep desert. They want deep desert to be a free-for-all scavenger kind of setup where, everyone's available to be shot at. Any vehicle can be damaged. If you go in the deep desert, you're risking it all, and they want it to be hardcore blood for blood kind of situation. So they don't plan to do the faction thing in deep desert, though they're saying that they might add another area like the deep desert that could be faction related, depending on what the setup is. Next, it was asked, can we get a deep desert zone or desert zone? Ooh, delicious. For only on foot combat? Feels like it's just air combat at the moment, creating a mode where only bikes and buggies are allowed. allowed. Also, we can get more dungeons within Deep Desert with a variety of bosses and targeted loot farm systems where players can select loot from the loot that they want. So diving into this a little bit, there are a lot of people that just don't like how Ornithopter focused the Deep Desert is just in general. Like a lot of it is just aerial combat with how effective the rockets are from the Ornithopter and how much mobility you get from the Scout Ornithopter. There really isn't much reason to get out of your Ornithopter if there's other players nearby. And if you do, you're putting yourself at significant risk of getting blasted. Then, you know, if you do die outside of your Ornithopter and you didn't store it, they're going to destroy it after the fact. You'll have to find a way to get back to your Ornithopter, salvage it, get the parts off of it except for the chassis, and then be able to make another one after the fact. But there's definitely a huge risk there. And also a lot of the dungeons in the Deep Desert I haven't been super impressed with. A lot of them just have like they're going to spawn like 60 enemies over and over in waves trying to knock you out or destroy you in that way, or just kind of create that. So the question is, can we get, you know, more focus on abilities and ground combat, and can we get better dungeons that feel a little bit more fresh and varied inside the Deep Desert? The response is no, this is not the plan. However, a lot of our adjustments and balancing are going to drive combat towards the core vision, which is people competing over points of interest in the Deep Desert. The current balance between vehicles and on foot is not tuned to our liking, and there are multiple changes in the pipeline to address this above and beyond bug fixes, which they will be implementing. We'll continue to add dungeons, but we will not add targeted loot systems, as the entire point of the Deep Desert is the randomization and re-exploration loop, as we would work entirely against that. So they're saying that they're sticking to their guns on this. They want the Deep Desert loot and dungeon setup to be completely random. Whatever blueprint you get or schematic you get is going to be completely random. You can't target farm anything outside of resources in the Deep Desert for that as well. And they do like the way the Deep Desert is. They just want people to have a little bit more fighting over POI. So if you look at the layout of the Deep Desert, and you can see that it's just a lot of empty sand, and then various POIs like rock formations or things like that people will be attracted to be able to fight over. They like that. They just want to create POIs that maybe encourage less vehicles, so maybe like more, you know, very intricate layouts like level designs that force you to get into one spot or another, or they force you to get out of your vehicle because your vehicle just won't fit, and then maybe that POI forces more on foot combat and not vehicle combat, and that's what they're looking for. But they like the way the Deep Desert is right now. Next, they ask, are there any plans to make building easier, like being able to replace one floor for another without having to move everything and destroy the current floor? I know it's something that was done with Conan Exiles, and it would be great to see it here too, which is interesting because they did actually show the hot swapping technique on their dev streams before the game launched, though it didn't seem to make it into the full release. You can do the piece picker, which allows you to kind of pick up on pieces that you've already been using and kind of use those as an option, but they didn't seem to have it in the full release. The question is, can we make building a little less cumbersome? Though I would say in general, as survival building games go, the way Dune setup is right now is pretty above average. It's actually quite good. There's definitely more quality of life changes and improvements, but it is actually better than I would expect for a building game in general. And the answer is yep, they want to do that. Like I said, they did show it off in their dev showcase. I watched one of their devs walk up to a wall and hot swap it to a different look, just like you do with the vehicles. Like you can go to the vehicles and change variants on the vehicles without getting into the vehicle or moving it. And so they did show this off on a wall. It just didn't make it in the release. So their plan is, yep, they want to be able to do that. So you can look at an item and change it. Obviously, there's going to be restrictions on the shape of the item. It has to be something that has the same shape and same collision, I'm guessing. But they do plan to have the option to be able to swap the floor type or the wall type or something, as long as it's not, you know, blocked by something else in the area. Next is, will we ever be able to stack storage boxes, so having them on top of each other? You can actually do this right now if you create a half wall and then like a half floor or a floor on top of it. If you use the small storage boxes or the flat ones, you can slide some underneath and put some on top. It would be nice to actually get real shelves, not like half wall with a floor on top of it. And honestly, once you get to the bigger storage boxes, it's not possible to stack them anyways unless you do multiple floors, but it would be nice to be able to stack those or just have better options for creating shelving. I think games like Enshrouded and stuff like that have really great options for creating stacked storage or putting things on walls, and having more of that in the game I think would be a huge boon. The response is, yeah, you can do it already with half walls to create shelves. We are continuously looking into ways to improve quality of life, and stacking storage boxes is on the list. So they're aware of it. It doesn't sound like it's on a like shipping list, but at least is on a concept list that adding shelves would be a cool addition and that they're aware of it. So just keep that in mind, but it doesn't seem like it's an immediate future kind of thing. Next is, will you be looking at a change that allows us to take a corpse from a storage box and place it directly into a Deathstill? At the moment, it's not possible. However, I would be happy if you limited it to the proximity of the Deathstills. We tend to have a storage container full of corpses right next to the Deathstills. So the Deathstills, if you don't use them right now, you absolutely should. Once you get like 2 or 3 advanced Deathstills, depending on your water consumption needs, you don't really need water anymore. Like I literally have stored my blood bags and my blood extractors for like the last week, and I haven't touched them since. Once you have enough Deathstills, all you have to do is make a run in your buggy, pick up 10 corpses, 20 corpses or whatever, load them into a box right next to a Deathstill, and then that is your water consumption. Like, it's so easy to stack that up. However, you do have to have 75 volume available in your inventory, and then you take the corpse out of the box, you have to walk it over to the Deathstill and put it in. So what they're saying is, like, can we make this process easier? And the response is, my friend, the intentionality of lifting a corpse and placing it in the sacred machine known as the Deathstill is a ritual that must be honored with contemplation of each and every victim that you place within. I was a friend of Jamis B. Lakaifa. Also, Deathstills are an insanely rewarding way to get water, and we feel that current design is in line with convenience, giving the automated machinery. There is a core difference between Fremen technology and Chom technology, and corpses are not compatible with the circuit systems. In general, I think this is probably a fair response. I mean, for how much water you get from these things, I think it is fair to say that there's a little bit of inconvenience in having to like make room in your inventory to carry the corpse. Since we have 175, you just need to make 75 room in your inventory and walk it over. And like I said, in my base, we have a big, large, spice melange level storage container full of corpses. We just walk them over, fill all the Deathstills when they're done every hour, and then we get a bunch of water. It's just so insanely good. So I guess they're saying that for the value you get, it's good enough, and they're happy with it. Next is a massive wall of text. This was a huge thing, but it did get a response. So let's just do the spark notes on this. What are your plans to improve PvP? Right now, PvP feels meaningless. There's no real risk or reward. You get the only a few lootable items. Everything else they keep when they die and respawn. Taking down someone in the air is fun, but all we get is a destroyed chopper with no real gain. What are you going to do to fix the classes system? Can we get an in-game notification that have the time associated so you can see when you go to your radio system to see what time was being showed? Can we get a deposit all, extract all for reward? Can we increase the party size or remove friendly fire between guildmates? Can the map filters be more granular and persistent? Can the radar be more dynamic? Can we make it easier to distinguish between players and NPCs? Also, can we make player names and guild tags more visible? Can we have an option to skip dialogue and animations? Can we move the minimap game between worlds? Can you make the map feature be more toggleable across the map, across worlds, and see party? So a lot to unpack here. There's a crazy amount going on with this. That's actually nuts. They're obviously not going to remove the overworld map outright. Like, just can we remove the minimap game between worlds is just craziness. Also, this worm is just going wild on my screen right now. Like, holy moly, what a yump. That's crazy. So let's dive into the response here. What are your plans to improve your PvP? We have a lot of plans to address your points about respawn times and revives. Full loot is a decree that we can be obtained via the Landsraad. I have not experienced open looting for PvP. I've had people in my stream say that they got it as a Landsraad reward and they lost everything dying once in PvP. I'm guessing that the PvPers would love this and the PvEers would absolutely hate this. And if it got activated for the Landsraad, they might not go into the DD for a full week. But that's kind of where we're at. So complete there. It will, if you want to make it a reality, you can with the Landsraad. There are control points in Deep Desert already. We have no plans to reduce the DD size. As we work on the game, we will continue to work on making PvP more rewarding. Can we consolidate sieges and servers? We will do this if we feel that it is necessary. That makes sense. Can the in-game notification have the time associated with player or server time zone instead of UTC? Yes, this is being improved. So what he's asking for is kind of a standard across most software in the world now in 2025, that it will be dynamically changed to your own time zone. Most people that don't have, work positions or professions that require the constant translation of time zones are not comfortable with UTC. I'm quite comfortable with time zone changes, and there are tools like, World Time Buddy and other things you can use online for translating between time zones. And after a while, you get kind of used to UTC and converting it. But I definitely get if you have a work-life responsibility that doesn't relate to time zones, UTC is probably quite annoying. So, you know, the modern, you know, ubiquitous aspect here is just to make it translate to your local time zone dynamically. So they say it's being improved. When are you going to fix the classes quests? Making multiple improvements. Worth noting, most people have 0 issues completing them, but we have reporting issues. Yeah, so there's a lot of them. I had issues with like the planetologist quest for like the first week of the game, where if you're Harkonnen, you couldn't complete it because one stage of it required you to go to a NPC in the Atreides headquarters. However, he wouldn't talk to you if you were Harkonnen, so they had to hotfix that after a while, and there's still tons of them for various classes as well. Can we have deposit all and extract all? Yes, we are working on it. Can we increase the party size or remove friendly fire? No, this is the party size we have chosen for the game, so 4 players for a squad is staying, and our encounters in PvE are balanced towards this. Changing it is not in the plans, and we also expect guilds to coordinate and work together. Friendly fire is there to ensure that they do, so none of that is changing on group size or guild friendly fire, if that's what you're wondering. Can the map filters be granular persistent? They'll check into it. Probably not in the short term, but they'll look into it. Can the radar be dynamic as well? No, this is not planned. Can we make it easier to distinguish between players? No, this is in line with the vision of the game. Can we have an option to skip all dialogue? Absolutely not. It is clear from your question that you value efficiency above all else, but the vision of the game is to value Dune above all else, so no. Can we remove that mini-map game between worlds? No. Can we make the map feature be able to toggle the map across worlds? No, we have no plans to implement this, so there we go. And I'll actually pause the video here because I think that there is quite a lot more Q&A to dive into, and I'd like to kind of show some examples and stuff like that. So we'll kind of make this maybe a multi-part series just so the video doesn't get too like heavyweight and difficult to deal with. And they're probably not going to be doing another, you know, AMA in the next week or two. So we'll kind of space it out so people can get caught up with that. Let me know what you think about the questions and answers we've talked about in this video today down below in the comments, and what your expectations are for the game in the coming weeks, months, and then for the rest of the year as well. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.